All right, welcome, Margaret. Good to see you. Yes, welcome. Yes, and welcome everyone in the room. If you're having a hard time hearing me, especially when we give the Dharma talk, you're welcome to move closer to or raise your hand and signal to me, and I'll try my best to project. Yeah. Maybe we can test again if we do. Yeah, maybe later. Yeah. But you'll have to keep so. Yeah, so I'd like to just begin by just taking about maybe 10, 15 minutes just to settle our body in and take refuge in the three jewels. And in this way, we come in touch with our heart mind, and invoking the awakened nature within ourselves. I take refuge in the Buddha, whether this be the historical Buddha or all the Buddhas of the past, or the possibility of awakening within ourselves, the Buddha nature within. Taking refuge in the Buddha nature within us. And now I invite you to take refuge in the Dharma, the way things really are. And experiencing the way things really are in this moment. The characteristics of existence as it is felt here and now in our body, in our heart, in our minds. Taking refuge in the Buddha's teaching, in the teachings of truth. And lastly, taking refuge in the Sangha. I go for refuge in the Sangha, the community that is committed to practicing this path of compassion and wisdom. The Dharma cannot be the Dharma if there is no Sangha that lives the Dharma. That realize awakening through directly understanding the Dharma. So we are the Sangha, the continuation of these teachings living through us is the Buddha, is the Dhamma. And taking refuge in the Sangha within ourselves. So our ancestors, our teachers, our mentors, our guides, those who've shown us the way, our friends, our good spiritual friends that reminded us when we forgot, when we lost sight of how things really are. We're called back to remembering again. So let us stay present to the triple gems within us, coming home to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as our form of protection on the path, as a way of realizing liberation. And when the moon moves, you hear me invite the bell, and we'll come back to the body, to the room, and Kendall will give a short welcome and land acknowledgement, and then we'll. Uh, I guess actually before that, I'd like to chant the Metta Sutta, and then we'll do the welcome and land acknowledgement. And then I will offer a short talk and reflection on how we can seek protection through loving kindness, through this quality of heart mind. So there is a handout with the Metta Sutta on it. Does everyone have a copy? Yes. Okay. And for those of you on Zoom, I will share it on the screen here. Okay. All right. So this is the Metta Sutta is part of one of the original teachings of the Buddha, and the Buddha taught this metta, this quality of mind, of loving kindness, as we translate it to loving kindness, as a way that helps us to go through the world fearlessly, and also the way we can arrive at this sense of, that Thich Nhat Hanh would call interbeing, that experience of oneness with ourself and others, that there is no separate sense of self that we need to guard or protect, right? And that there isn't someone that's the other and then there's me. So we'll chant this, and I invite you to really take in the words and see how it lands with you, how it resonates with you, what lines really stand out. You know, every time I chant the Metta Sutta, there's a certain thing that really captures my attention, because it's something that the heart is experiencing, and that particular line maybe in that time is what I needed to hear. So really see what stands out for you as you hear the Metta Sutta. And this is in the Theravada way we chant this. There's the up arrow, or the diamond shape is, where your tone goes up, and then if it's below the vowel or letter, then you lower your tone. And then if there's a line underneath it, you extend it by a few notes. So it's not really, I'm not really good at chanting this, so it won't be perfect the way I chant it, because I've kind of gotten used to making up my own melody when I chant this. So forgive me if it doesn't follow what you're used to hearing. But in the tradition of chanting, like why we chant is that it actually helps us to remember the teaching, and that's how the teachings have been passed down from the over 2,600 years or 500 and something years. And having grown up in the Vietnamese Mahayana tradition, I've come to memorize so many chants, and that's because of the chanting it. So I learned the Buddha's teaching through the chants. And it's only been since over the pandemic that I learned these chants, in the Ajahn Chah's version. Welcome, Susan. Welcome. And so, just by way of that, memorizing and knowing the Dharma it becomes easier, because it's now a part of like a song that we know, right? So we can call to mind those qualities, whether it's loving kindness or any other sutra. So I encourage you, if it resonates with you and you want to learn the Buddha's teaching, take on a chant. Like, for example, the Heart Sutra, which is from also the Mahayana tradition, is one from Thich Nhat Hanh that I've memorized all of the teachings just through chanting it, and the melody helps us remember. So I hope there's something here that resonates with you. But the Metta Sutta is one that when I first heard it in this particular version, maybe about 12 years ago, and at the time I wasn't studying sutta, I was just practicing, and it just awakened something really deep within me, and I didn't know where to search for the words, maybe even longer than that. So I heard it and I wrote it down word by word, kind of like back in the days when you play the tape and you rewind and then listen to it again, write the words down. So I didn't Google it or anything until I came across this version, which was given to me by a teacher named Matthew at Portland Friends of the Dharma. It was very kind of him. And so I carried that with me and chanted every day during the pandemic, and by way of that, memorize a lot of the Buddha's teachings. So I'll share this on the screen. Susan, so good to see you here. I'm so glad you came. Yeah, so welcome. Oh no, you're great. I'm glad you came, even though you're late. Yeah, no worries. Good to see you. Really. All right. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise anything in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
So sometimes I do a very long welcoming and land acknowledgement, and I'll try to make it a little shorter this time, but I really like to think of it as an offering to consider it as a heart engaging listening practice as you sit quietly, grounding in the body and seated in the chair, and that hearing is happening as you relax and you become more aware of each other and our surroundings, that we want to honor each of you in our meditation practice, undertaking this heartfelt welcome to those of every age and ethnicity, cultural heritage, and religious backgrounds, those from various socioeconomic groups and abilities, sexual orientation, and gender identity, acknowledging each of us in our rich complexities of identities that we study together and practice together for the benefit of all beings and for this earth. And we recognize the suffering that's caused by biases and prejudices and systems of power and privilege and oppression based on our various identities. And we aspire to do no harm, to dismantle barriers that cause separation and suffering, and recognizing that our liberation is interconnected with the liberation of all. And we also really want to acknowledge and honor the indigenous peoples of this region whose ancestral lands we're seated upon here in Portland. It's Willamette, Clackamas, Multnomah, Tualatin, dozens of tribes and bands that make up part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and the Cowlitz, and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz, and the many Native communities that have inhabited these areas for 11,000 years. We recognize that Portland is this community. Really, it's the First Nation people who continue to live and work here, and um, respecting and acknowledging and honoring all the communities. And Portland is one of the largest urban centers for a variety of Indigenous people. So I like to suggest that you get to know, maybe even by just going on Instagram to one of my favorite Indigenous people's websites, and they on Instagram, and they have pop-up craft um, opportunities. So they have a pop-up shop usually all over the place. So it's called Indigenous Peoples Marketplace. And see, this is where it gets longer because I don't want to leave out the importance of migrants that came here as settlers and for generations, Japanese, Chinese laborers, Irish laborers, and particularly those who came here involuntarily. Peoples brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade that built the foundation of the United States. And this living acknowledgement of Black labor is a statement that recognizes and honors the African people that were enslaved at the hands of white colonizers and subjugated to unpaid labor, and the descendants of enslaved African people. And so acknowledging those that did not survive the Middle Passage, and those who were beaten and lynched at the hands of white Americans, and those who still suffer while fighting for their freedom. And so the purpose of recognizing this deep and difficult history is really to show respect and gratitude and appreciation for insurmountable contributions that the enslaved who worked the land against their will for generations, and for the sake of American capitalism, for our benefit, as well as increase awareness about the horrific outcome of a distorted Black and American history. And lastly are the of particular importance are all of the Asian ancestors in our Buddhist lineages who Buddhism was introduced in the United States by Asian immigrants in the 19th century. The first ones came to Hawaii, and there was a California gold rush, and then there was the Immigration Act of 1965, and so now immigrant Buddhist congregations in North America are as diverse as the different peoples of Asian Buddhist countries who settled here. So Sri Lanka, China, Japan, Korea, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Buddhists in the United States with family backgrounds in most Buddhist countries and regions. And so with that, I like to have us think that this is just part of our lineage, part of our um, ability to continue the legacy. And thanks to Buddhism coming here thousands of years. And just take a breath and let some of that soak in and notice where the mind and heart are and settle into your breath and allow your presence to be here in this moment. And we have back here on the table some of our guidelines if you want to check it out later, or if you're new and haven't been in this building, there's a bathroom right out here and a drinking fountain. There's a one that mirrors it downstairs. And we strive in our Pacific Northwest meditation community to be scent free for people with sensitivities. And if there are people with neurodiversities and others that might be looking for a quiet space, there's a garden in the back. The door beside the elevator downstairs leads out to it. And it's also important within this community that we use pronouns out of respect and acknowledgement for those who don't identify with the binary pronouns that were given to them at birth. So when you speak, if you would say your name and your pronouns, it would be much appreciated. And so I think I'll just end, if I can find it, from this quote from Larry Yang that I really like a lot. For me, it is through the lenses of community and identity that I begin to see how identity can be a door into the Dharma practice and spiritual freedom. The beauty of the Dharma is that everything, even all the particulars of identity, is integral to our spiritual practice. Accordingly, freedom is not just about transcending identity, but embracing it until what is beyond the experience of identity reveals itself. And as with much of our human existence, this is not always a linear process. So thank you, and just noticing where the heart and mind is as we continue on today.
Thank you, Candle. So I want to just take a moment now. It's funny because I think by bringing it closer, you'll hear me better. And I was like, it's a trick. Right. All right. I haven't karaoke in a while, so disgrace almost been of me, so doesn't karaoke. Okay. Um, it's in there somewhere. Um, I want to just take a moment to give everyone an opportunity to share what resonated with you as we were chanting the Metta Sutta. You know, what line really stood out, or what had you grapple like, ooh, that thing. Well, maybe you're stuck on it, or maybe it stood out, or there was something about that that opened the heart, the mind, or created some sort of chemical response inside. So, is there anything there? And for those of you in the room, if it's short, you can just shout it out. But if you want to share, you can grab the mic from me. And for those of you on Zoom, you can raise your hand, physical hand or virtual hand. Yeah. If I could put that chant. Kendo, is there a way we could put that chant in the chat for those others? So maybe it's, yeah.
There are so many great lines. Okay. There are so many great lines in this. I never get tired of chanting it, but I think one of the most challenging ones is let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Because it so quickly comes to mind sometimes, without really noticing it. Some of those things, just, I mean, it's kind of strong language, despising any being in any state, but, there's judgment sometimes about other beings in other states. I mean, I'll just give a 30-second example of I was in the emergency room last night with my partner, and it was full of a lot of unhoused people. And one of them who was sitting beside me, we ended up having a very long conversation, which was fascinating. And otherwise, if I had paid no attention to him, I might have had a negative reaction to this kind of crazy unhoused person beside me. But it was fascinating and just having the mind to be open. But I don't want to keep talking.
Yeah. In that, thank you, Kendo, for sharing that. And sorry about Bill being in the hospital. Yeah. May he find relief in the troubles of the body. So this, yeah, the reminder of this, Kendall's reminding me over here, but every time she says karaoke, that means speak up. So, uh, um, um, let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. So, this is the Buddha's teaching to us about protecting one another. So, protecting a person who we see is being harmed, that's being deceived. So, this is pointing to an aspect of loving kindness, the practice of loving kindness that is about us protecting others. So, to cultivate that love within us, a lot of times we turn it to ourselves and it's may I be happy, may I be well, may I be at peace, may I have ease. But here it's a more of a turn towards caring for others that we give rise to the mind of loving kindness, of love, of friendliness. So this part of the sutra, what I think is makes it so interesting is the Buddha is telling us care for the other person, protect them. Because if we look at the next line, it says, just like a mother who protects her only child with her life, so with a boundless heart, our work is to cherish all living beings, protect all living beings. And in this way, it's, a lot of times we hear the metta practice as with phrases or, sending it to ourselves, sending it to other. But here, I think of it like very active in our life. It's, in the way that as we move through the world, we see when we are indifferent towards seeing harm or people being unkind or mean or aggressive to each other. And then when is it that we actually step in and, protect and care for, those who are being harmed, those who are being deceived, right? And so it's a different way of orienting ourselves to the practice of metta. Yeah. Okay, Margaret wanted to share, and then Susan, right? Was it you? Okay, no, no, it wasn't you. Okay, so Margaret.
Well, I just wanted to quickly share that one of the beautiful things about the Metta Sutta is similar to what Candace said, that there are no questions once you've read through the whole sutta. There are no questions as to how you are best off to proceed in life. And it's lovely in that way. It's just absolutely lovely. And yeah, because sometimes we're left with sort of nagging little questions every once in a while when you hear a recitation or whatever. And yeah, it's wonderful. I've been trying to get myself to read it every morning early in the day, to just go through each stanza and just go through each part of it. And as I say, it just makes it very clear. And I love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's very clear, right? Thank you, Margaret.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful to be able to take that on as a part of our practice every day is to practice metta, whether it is through, you know, phrases of and prayers of loving kindness or through the Buddha's words on loving kindness. But this is to me like it it reminds me of this is the way to be out in the world. This is the way, to be and how I am to um, move through difficult interactions or how to respond to, certain matters of the heart, right? The concerns of the heart is to lean into the Buddha's words on loving kindness. Yeah, thank you, Margaret. Mhm. Anyone else have anything you'd like to share? Yes.
Hi, I'm Rob. He, him. I think the aspect of with a boundless heart, cherish all living things, radiating kindness, outwards and unbounded. Um, to me, that's kind of the essence of the Metta Sutta is that we have no idea how much we can influence the world and how the hidden power of being positive and caring. Um, and whenever you're in a bad space and you receive a kindness from someone, you know what that power is. And so let's not forget that as we uh, embrace that.
Thank you, Rob. Your share just brought to mind something that Tai Kozen, the monastic who was here, the Buddhist monk who was here in December of last year, I think that he taught in the last Sunday. Um, he was sharing a story about, I don't know if it was uh, a burglary but there was that the one? Yeah, the robbery. And then, yes, the robber came in with a gun and he shot a few people, but he didn't shoot the person who had greeted him. And later on, when asked, why didn't you shoot her? She was the first one that he encountered. He said, because she said hello to me. She acknowledged me. And, it just, to what Rob was saying, we don't know the power of, loving kindness and how it could completely change the dynamic of a situation. Um, and I'm sorry, I'm going to speak a little more about just a story about guns. But uh, for the first time, so some of you might know I'm living out at Trout Lake Abbey, and for the first time in my life, went to a shooting range with Buddhist friends, and yeah, and so while I was there, uh, it was actually you'll get to meet him. The speaker is here next week, so you get to talk to him yourself about how is it with Trina, teaching Trina how to shoot a gun. um, but I came back from that experience, and there were other people sitting around, and they're like, "How was it? How was it for you?" And I said, I really sent into my body, and it didn't feel really good. First of all, just knowing that I'm holding this device that, just with one push of a trigger could take out someone's life. So that didn't make me feel so good. And I felt my nervous system definitely not experiencing pleasant sensation, right? And I said, well, at least I've done it once. Now I can say how it feels like. And someone responded and said, well, at least now you'll know how to protect yourself in case something happens. And I said, actually, my form of protection is loving kindness. And I've known in those years anytime I was afraid, anytime I felt like my life was going to be taken away from me, or that when the mind of loving kindness is present, that fear dropped away. And I don't need something outside of me to protect me. It's through that mind that, is open, and that mind that knows that other beings just like me want to be free from suffering. Other beings just like me, want to be free from danger, from ill will. They want to feel safe and secure. And just in remembering that, I remember that time, some of you have heard this, where I was going back to my room from the meditation hall on a retreat. And every night I leave the meditation hall around like 10:30, 11 p.m. It's pitch black out. And I'm climbing up these stairs, these stone, mossy stairs. And those first few nights, I was, like like such a wimp. I remember like just running, really fast. I mean, I was mindful and zen, and then as soon as I come outside, I'm like, oh my God, completely different person. Like, where's the Buddha's disciple in that moment? And I remember because recently there was a mountain lion that was spotted in that area. This was at Cloud Mountain. And I had heard from Kendall too that she would walk people back to their room late at night and on retreats before that. And I was like, okay, this is serious. So I was so nervous every time I left the meditation hall, and I would I try to find different ways to protect myself, like holding a pine cone, holding a stone as I'm walking up the stairs. And then trying to practice this loud roar, because my voice is already so soft, and when I meditate for many hours it's even softer. So I'm just trying to generate, like, okay, if I saw that beast come out of the corner, can I let out this loud roar? And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, can I generate that? Is that possible in me to generate that kind of loud voice? And nothing seemed to work. All those strategies, holding carrying a pine cone with me, a stick, a stone, none of that. And then as the day progressed and my meditation went deeper and deeper, at this point now, I was experiencing a tremendous amount of joy, the kind of joy that just came from within. And, I was, and when I experienced the joy, this great joy, I don't know how it is for many of you when you experience this kind of joy, but there's this it's teary, it's very heartfelt, it's very tender. And so I was walking back this one night, and my body was just pulsating with this joy. It was just as if I was just zapped with joy. And I walk up the steps again, and getting close to this, where another path was crossing, so this intersection between two paths. And in that moment, I was like, where is that fear? Is it there? Where is it? And it had left me. And in that moment, I said, okay, so what if you did encounter the mountain lion in this moment? And in that moment, you know, the mindfulness of the Dharma arose, where I was in touch with, oh, this mountain lion is also afraid of being harmed. It's also afraid of its life being taken away. And so am I right now. So we're actually no different from each other. We're both experiencing the same thing. It's afraid of, you know, uh, bumping into someone who might have a gun, who might try to harm it. And I'm also afraid of it eating me. And we both are afraid. So in that moment, I turned towards loving kindness, and I thought, wow, well, wherever you are, mountain lion, I want you to know, may you be free from harm. May you be safe. you know, may you know that, you are free from danger. And so I just started to just feel this love for, and the sense of wanting to protect this mountain lion. And so I thought, okay, so if this moment comes where I see it maintain this mindfulness, maintain this loving kindness, and courage arrived. Courage arose in me where I felt like I could just walk peacefully and slowly up to my room and just continue to see if there was any sense of fear or worry. And the whole time it was just a joyful experience of walking back to my room. And so then just wanted to share, how the practice of loving kindness and the Brahma Viharas, of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity is is our highest protection in this life. And in that way, just like in the Mangala Sutta says, they who live by following this path know victory wherever they go, and every place for them is safe. These are the highest blessings. The safety, that feeling of safety that comes from within. And I was thinking about this as I was talking with another Dharma friend, where we were exchanging, our concerns with safety and traveling. And I remember one time when I was in Chicago and I was staying at a friend's place in the south side of Chicago, where, if you hear on the news, that's where most of the shootings happen. And I was coming back from being in downtown and going back to her place, and I took the train back. And I text her. I said, "Hey, I'm on the train. I'll be there in a few stops." And she texted me back. She said, "Are you crazy? It's late at night and you're on the train heading back here." And she said to me, "Okay, well, once you are here, before you get off that train, um, let me know that you've arrived, and I'll come out and get you." So she came out, and as I walked down the steps of the station, I saw her, and she was holding a metal bat in her hand. And so I mean, it's not that, I, one might hear the story and say, "My God, Trina, you're so naive and so unaware," right? But, another way that we can look at this too, just in general, is, going through life without this paranoia that someone's out to get us, that our life is always somehow at stake. And when we practice loving kindness, there's a sense in which we kind of soften to the sense of me, mine, I, because it's that strong sense of self that has us want to protect ourselves and afraid of losing ourself, our physical self. And to be free from that worry, always looking over our shoulder, whether, metaphorically or, really looking over our shoulder, is that sense of peace that we can have to move through the world where everywhere I go, I feel safe and secure. And I want to share 11 of the advantages for practicing metta. And this is in the Metta Sutta. And this talks about the advantages of loving kindness, translated from Pia Dasi Thera. And I quote, "Monks or practitioners, 11 advantages are to be expected from the release of heart by familiarizing oneself with thoughts of loving kindness, by the cultivation of loving kindness, by constantly increasing these thoughts, by regarding loving kindness as a vehicle and also as something to be treasured, by living in conformity with these thoughts, by putting these ideas into practice, and by establishing them." Right? So I'll repeat that because I think if there's a lot of things that even in this part here, it points to, is that loving kindness is where there's a release of the heart from the fears, from the defilements, from the unwholesome states of mind, right? From the hindrances. And then to get familiarized with what the quality of loving kindness feels like that emotional tone of it. We get familiar with it, so we know when it's absent, and then we know how to um, arouse it, or bring it to mind, bring it into our heart, so we can continue to cultivate it and also continue to constantly increasing these thoughts of loving kindness. So it's not like we either have it or we don't, but it's something that we can work to dwell in. What I love about the word divine abode is the word abode is, a place where you live in. So it's a place that we can live in. Our mind can continue to dwell in that state of loving kindness, in those thoughts of loving kindness, and to see loving kindness as a vehicle to liberating our heart, to purifying our heart. And um, by living in conformity with these thoughts, and by putting these ideas into practice and establishing them. Okay, so what are these 11 advantages? One sleeps in comfort. One awakes in comfort. I remember on my last retreat at a forest refuge, there were so many days when I went to bed and I felt like the Dharma was hugging my heart. It was just the most warm and just nourishing feeling, like I was being hugged by the Dharma. So that was that comforting feeling I had. One sees no evil dreams, so having no nightmares. One is dear to human beings. One is dear to non-human beings. Devas or gods protect one. Fire, poison, and sword cannot touch them. Their mind can concentrate quickly. Their countenance is serene. When this person dies, they die without being confused in the mind. If they fail to attain arahantship here and now, they will be reborn in the Brahma world. So this is the higher plane of existence, and it requires virtuous actions, meditation, and adherence to spiritual practice for this higher state of existence to be reborn in that higher state. So I'll pause there for a moment. Anyone have anything you'd like to reflect? Any comments, shares, or even disagreement, objection, or something you're grappling with? All is welcome here. Margaret?
Yeah, sometimes I deeply appreciate what you've just said. I really do. It's just that sometimes I still have some difficulty with what has turned into a conditional um, thought or feeling that has existed in my life, and and to free my heart of that is I find the more I practice it, the closer I get to that. Uh, and I just hope that before I die, that I do have that complete freedom, that liberation of the conditional, uh, part. But I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, Margaret. That, yeah, some of our habit energies are so strong. And so this is where we first practice with just mindfulness of coming back to the body, right? Returning to the body, and then become aware of the breath. So we'll practice meditation here in just a little bit. And getting in touch with the habit energy that's there. It's almost like it has a life of its own, where as soon as we sit or as soon as we find ourselves in a certain situation, it's like there again. Maybe for some, it's as soon as you get on the train, and it's dark out, or walking outside, or whatever that might be, where we tend to, our mindfulness is like not there in that moment, and the hindrances are there, whether it's that restlessness or agitation, or maybe it's aversion, right? Or any of the states of mind that pull us away. Yeah, so we first work with that and noticing those habit energy, that it's not personal. And we work to become mindful and then bring ourselves back, get in touch with the quality of the heart. How does it feel like right now? Right? Observing that. And then to me, loving kindness is like it's an antidote. It's a balm that soothes the heart, that um, uh, helps solve and the matters of the heart. Because when the heart is, bounded up, there's a certain way that we are resisting how things are, right? Where like we have expectations, or um, we have certain, views that are, we call it delusion, or, there's certain things that we don't know, our blind spots that cause us to bind up. And so with the practice of mindfulness, we first develop this awareness around that, around what is here now. How is it really like right now inside? And there's a way in which we are, um, the quality of truthfulness, where we are really turning towards it and almost like admitting to it. Okay, yeah, there is a little bit of dread here. Or, okay, yeah, I'm not really suffering, but you know what? It is a little bit annoying. There's a little bit of a tension or dis-ease here. So we turn to it, and to whatever degree that's there for, for a number of you, as skilled practitioners, it gets ever more subtle. So it's not this very strong, feeling tone, but it's very subtle. And that's kind of where we can still continue to work to uproot or shine light upon it. Because this training in meditation is training the heart to remain open, to awaken to how things really are. So we're also observing the things that are going on in the mind, but then you know, how does that bind the heart? Right. I use the word heart, but the the term in Buddhism is actually chitta. And in Vietnamese, it's the word tam. Tam is that the heart mind. In English, there's attempt to translate it, and it's the heart mind. So it's not here or here, but it's that the coming together of the two. Um, and so we're training the heart mind to, here we read in the sutra, with a boundless heart, to open and to be free. All the obstructions are being seen, and then, you know, in a sense, they just kind of drop away by way of us getting in touch with the dukkha, right? The dissatisfaction that's there, the defilement, the clinging, the resisting, um, and just giving it that time to just settle and soften and drop away.
Trina, can I just say that
Yeah.
what you've just said is very, very helpful to me, because I recognize that I was criticizing myself. I was, putting myself down for having for that arising every once in a while. And so it makes sense that I continued to struggle with it. And so yeah, what you said, thank you, is helpful.
So welcome.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing so openly and vulnerably. Yeah. Yeah. And, even in that, as we are in touch with those of how the heart is or the thoughts that are there, so in place of what Margaret, you were saying, judgment, right? And this is, not just for you, it's just for all of us who to remember and recall is that we, now we, it's like we call upon loving kindness as, this attitude that we bring forth to turn towards that
Mhm.
matter, that concern in the heart. So we're not making it wrong, but it's almost like we're like this, like a parent would, be tender and loving to their child. We're doing that to the matters of our heart and our
Mhm.
mind.
Mhm.
So there's a way in which we're like seeing it, and it's like that child crying. We can try to comfort it, and maybe he or she is having a full blown tantrum, and okay, in time they're gonna settle down, get quiet, and we just are there, just this tender care and kind attention, this gentleness, right? So that gentleness is there when we um, are with whatever's going on internally. Yeah, yeah. Sandra.
As we talk about this, a couple of things. I often, when I first learned about metta or loving kindness, it was generally from a more Western perspective, um, in that, you don't have to feel sort of the loving kindness, but it's good to practice it, making it part of your practice, um, even if it doesn't feel mushy or kind of thing. But as you talk about it today, and as I'm reading the sutra here, following your words, I sort of see it now as the introduction of compassion to equanimity. Because equanimity is that feeling of, it is what it is, but not placing, not grasping or attaching or placing a feeling on it. But then the loving kindness gives a softening or that compassion around, it is what it is, kind of thing. And I like those two together. They seem to really pair well, on sort of that acceptance, or care for how things are with people suffering while not getting attached to the world's suffering or even your own. So it seems to go hand in hand in some way there.
What about now?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I think of this. Thank you, Sandra, for pointing that out. That with the equanimity, you heard compassion in there, and you heard equanimity in there as well. I think of it as like starting with one practice. It's starting with loving kindness. It's like it's this buy one and get three free, right? So when the what you heard in my story around like seeing that the meditating and walking back and thinking about the mountain lion, and how, joy, helped me in that moment. The mind was in a joyful state. And so loving kindness arose, and I was, contemplating on how that mountain lion and I are the same. We both want to be happy, and then compassion extending out to wanting to protect the mountain lion, right? Wanting to make sure that I'm not going to scare the mountain lion, like trying to not startle him, and then equanimity, just being able to be with, you know, what could be there, what might be there, the unexpected, the unknown, right? Yeah. So thank you for highlighting that. Yes. In a way, the practice of metta helps us to get in touch with the Dharma of, no self, right? That this sense of interbeing, the interconnectedness of us with all living beings. And going back to the Metta Sutta, the Buddha is saying, you know, this like cherishing all living beings, not just the one we like or, the ones that we think are cute and obedient, but all of them, and that goes for the human beings too, the people who are, virtuous, and then the ones that are misbehaving and unethical, right? So our work is to continue to cherish all living beings. I remember when I was in Chicago, when I lived there, I often would visit a Tibetan monk from the Kadampa Vajrayana tradition. And one of his practices when he went outside, he would be in a Tibetan robe, really tall man. And he'd walk around in one of the busiest intersection in Chicago. It was an area, the Damon stop in Chicago, where people are just everywhere coming out of work. And what he does during that time, and even further in the evening when it's happy hours, he walks around and he see people drunk. He see, women, looking like a certain way, they're dressed a certain way, and men being a certain way, and, all people being, how they are coming out of work and, coming out of the bars and whatnot. And he sees each one of them as someone dear to him. So he think of it as like when he sees that woman passing by, he thinks of her as a mother. He's like, oh, my dear mother. And then he sends her loving kindness. I wish you well, dear mother. And then he sees another person. He says, oh, my dear father. Right. Or we can even think, dear child, dear nephew, dear niece, dear aunt or uncle, dear brother or sister. And how that shifts us into seeing them as someone close that we want to care for and protect. And that's a practice that I took on. I thought it was just so beautiful. It's easy to relate to. How am I going to be if this is my brother, right? Or how am I going to be if this is my father, or my sister? So when we view others, all beings like that, whether it's that little bug or spider, maybe that could be, our sister or mother or father in another lifetime. And so we can, from there, from that sense of seeing them as a family member, we want to protect them. We want to make sure they are safe and free from harm, and that they get to live a good life. And so, again, if it goes back to being able to practice this way in which we work to protect all beings. And particularly in the Mahayana tradition, when, you know, a family or an individual experience suffering, a lot of problems or some traumatic, tragic event that happens, um, the monks and nuns would encourage practicing generosity and encourage practicing, the sila. So really like uh, uh, step it up a few notch with, the precepts. Maybe eat a vegetarian diet so that you're reducing your, the karma from, killing, right? Or it could be donating to, different causes or giving up of your time for the community. And so in that way, these practices are to open up the heart, right? So it has us connect to each other and also get in touch with that sense of goodness that's there because we experience our own goodness of being kind and generous. And so we touch into that feeling of what love is, what kindness is, what friendliness is. So uh, back to, that line of the sutra here, um, is increasing, working to increase these thoughts um, and living in conformity with these thoughts. So living in conformity with these thoughts and getting really familiarized with the thoughts of loving kindness. And I think here also getting in touch with the emotional tone of it. How does that tone feel like? The feeling tone of love, of kindness, of friendliness when it's there. Is the mind, liberated or is it contracted? Is the heart open or is it closed? So I want to pause there and I'd like for us to now, we'll sit in meditation for 30 minutes. And at any point in time, if you feel like you want to stand up or you want to walk, you could also walk outside here, do walking meditation. And my invitation for this type of practice is to get in touch with the goodness within you. So if it's accessible for you, is to really feel into that heart space. So after you begin by getting in touch with the breath and kind of you're experiencing that settling down and there's a steadiness in being with the breath or being in the body, is then start to move towards the heart space and really get in touch with what it feels like right here in the area around your chest. And just note it, just sense into it, and then continuing to calm and soothe yourself either with the breath or through staying with sensation. And if your practice is, to say a mantra, uh, that's also welcome. One of the mantras for me is, I remind myself to rest in the heart because I'm someone that spends a lot of time in the mind. I love to analyze and assess things. So in my practice, I would say, rest in the heart, rest in the heart, rest in the heart. So it's like calling myself back to here. Yeah. So whatever works for you, or maybe it's, it's even saying those phrases of loving kindness. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. Peace, peace, whatever that is. Okay. So we'll sit for 30 minutes or in whatever shape or form that feels um, like an act of loving kindness for you today. Please feel free to move as you feel called to or stretch if you feel called to, and arrive when you're ready. As the body begins to settle and you've identified a stable shape to remain in for the duration of this practice, I invite you to get curious about where there's still a possibility to further soften, to rest. To come back to the breath, just in being aware of the breath. The breath knows how to take care of us. This grace, this kindness, this attitude of gentleness, touching the experience that is here, whatever's arising and passing away, is given permission to be here. And we continue to observe the sensations and the feeling tone. anyone like to share what came up inside of your practice in this time? Any questions or insights, or just something you like to reflect? Or did you find a certain technique that really worked for you today? I have in my lap this book called the Patipada. It's about the Thai forest monk tradition. Particularly, this is from Venerable Acharya, which means teacher, Acharya Mun, or Mun. I think it's Mun. Yeah, you've heard of him. Yes, you've heard of her? Yeah, wonderful book. And one of the methods, one of the ways in which the monks in this tradition practice is by going into the forest. I'll read this paragraph on the back of the book, which sums up the practice. Over on that hill, in that cave, or under that overhanging cliff in the air, the air is good. It is right for meditation, and the heart can easily become concentrated and drop into a state of calm. Those large trees over there are thick with leaves, shady and peaceful, suitable for the practice of meditation. The weather is good, and the place is free from the disturbance and confusion of the world. Those hills are places where your eyes and ears will open in the joy of Dhamma. They are all good places to stay and develop the practice, and search for peace and happiness of heart. In those wild forests, you will be able to get rid of all kinds of laziness and fear. A lazy or timid person should go and live in such a place, for it will help him or her to develop effort and diligence, and also to overcome their fear, so that they become more courageous and bold, relieving the load and pressure on his or her heart, which has become too heavy. And a line I'd like to also quote from the book. Oops. The place where Dhamma thrives is when the kileshas, so these are the defilements, the poisons, the hindrances, all the mental states that are hindering us from making progress on the path. So the place where Dhamma thrives is where the kileshas will deteriorate and die away entirely. What we call that place, those who practice the way should always know, is in the heart alone and nowhere else. Okay, so the kileshas, the defilements, drop away in the heart. So the heart becomes purified from the kileshas, from the defilements, from all the obstructions. And when the heart is open, is free, is liberated, it's like this calm, cool heart that can experience peace, that can experience deeper states of concentration, that can awaken to the Dhamma, to how things really are. So I will be offering a retreat in February at Trout Lake Abbey, home of Mount Adams Buddhist Temple, next month, February 20th to the 23rd. And we'll be practicing noble silence, and we'll be cultivating this, training this heart-mind. And I'll put the link into the chat, but the website is wakeuptogether.org/retreat. There are really nice nice meditation huts on the grounds of this place, and vegetarian meals will be served, and we'll be able to practice together in a place somewhat described by Ajahn Mun, this place where we are free from disturbance and confusion of the world. So come together to practice. So I hope you would join me. So, yes, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then ends on Sunday. So Thursday, we begin at 6 p.m. and then on Sunday we end at 11:30. Yes, so wakeuptogether.org/retreat. Yeah. And anyone else with anything you'd like to share? One last call. Anything burning? And lovely to see you here too, Asher. What an honor. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you like to?
Well, I always really like to talk about Dana because we have this joy of being born in the human realm where we have the ability to hear the Dharma. And this tradition has been passed on for generation after generation after generation. Well, we are not monks and our nuns, and we are not going with our bowls from city to city, and in return giving the Dhamma and receiving medicines and robes, but we are in this century here in North America, and the privilege. Dhamma is a mindfulness practice, and it brings the act of Dhamma out of the realm of unconscious, in a way, out of habit, into the realm of wise attention. And we can become aware of the joy that arises in the heart before giving. We can know the happiness during giving, and we can remember our past acts of generosity after giving. And this is cultivating a beautiful state of mind. So I have so much gratitude for everyone who helps us volunteer here and there, and the efforts that we are putting together to keep this coming every Saturday, and we like bringing guest teachers. So,
Donations we receive so far too.
yeah,
And all the donations we receive so far.
yeah. The donations we received so far, there's so much gratitude that we have, and we want to keep it up. And so there's a Dhamma box back there and some QR codes, and I put it in the chat box. And if you're a person that doesn't want to bother figuring out QR codes, you can write a check. And I wrote it in the box here. And you know, it doesn't matter. Any amount helps. Any amount helps. Big or small. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your acts of generosity. May it bring you joy, really, as Trina was talking about in the Brahma Viharas, in loving kindness. May you really appreciate the kindness that you're giving to yourself in giving, in letting go. The giving process is about letting go.
And so now, affiliated with Pacific Northwest Meditation, for those of you who visited the website, you'll see some of our affinity groups, the Nero Sangha that meets, and then the Be Queer Now that meets also, and then I'm somewhere affiliated with the BIPOC group now, so I'll be teaching at the BIPOC mindfulness group on January 26th. So if you have friends who identify as Black, Indigenous, or other people of color, or yourself, you're welcome to come join in on that space, to support our friends in all the ways that we can help open up the Dharma doors for people to first enter through, to practice. And to what Kendall was saying, you know, what was that line from Larry Yang about the Dharma doors and then leading to the path, right? So in whatever way that is. So thank you all for joining in and sharing the practice with me and with each other. Your practice strengthened my practice as well. So it goes both ways. So thank you so much for being here. And may we take joy in dwelling in the Dhamma and dwelling in the triple gems. Please take care. And for those of you here in the room, the cafeteria is closed tonight, but we can hang out here if you want, and we can snack. Oh, it's not locked, but I saw an email. Oh, great. Maybe it is free. Okay, because from Holly, yeah. And for everyone on Zoom, thank you for tuning in from wherever you are. Yeah, we did our best, and that's just what's so today. Thank you for understanding. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
James, good to see you. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, bye, Asher.